welcome to Painting with Shawna on Thursdays. I'm glad you're here. I talked to Northwest Tel last week. Let's turn on this light. Talked to Northwest Tel last week, and they gave me a suggestion of what to do to help with this problem I'm having with glitches and stuff. So we're trying it out this week to see if it's working. And then if I'm still having problems, I can get that sorted before I have my live stream for my annual show in just 15 days. This is the final live stream I'm going to do for a month because I have my show in 2 weeks, and this has been a marathon, and I'm going to take a little time and rest and do some additional shelving into here so that I have proper cupboards to hold things and keep the dust away from my brushes and so forth. If you're watching on YouTube, you can subscribe. I would really like that. And you can follow on Facebook. I have a weekly newsletter, and in this week's newsletter, I finished a painting the night before, and so I was able to, or the day of, actually. I finished the painting yesterday, and I was able just to take a quick picture and send it out to my weekly group that gets an email in connection with the live stream. If you are interested in the newsletter, just head on over to dancingravenstudio.ca. The address will be in the link below after the live stream. So we are on to a new painting. This is a color study I did, and this is the bigger version of it. It looks like they actually quite match. The color study told me a couple of things. I did the background like it is in the image, and I really didn't like how it just lost things that I didn't want to lose. So I wasn't really liking the water. I've now found an image. I went through a bunch of images last night, found an image. I'm going to draw very subtle shapes of water on the background so that there will be some patterning because it's pretty flat. Right now it's looking pretty flat. And that's how I'm going to deal with that issue. It told me that this color study has more space in it than I have on the board. Interesting. I hadn't thought about that. So it gave me the idea that my colors are close and I'm happy with them, and it helped with design as well because I'm working from two different images of the same image, two different sizes of the same image, and what I realized is there were reeds here, but I needed the answering one over here, smaller one, because I want them to feel like they're enclosed a bit and safe, because that's what they were doing. They were surrounded with reeds to help protect them from the predators that are out there to take their babies and make their lives sad. Anyway, let's get painting. So today I thought we would just work on the reeds. Put this down. Grab my brushes. The reeds are really interesting because near the bottom of the reed, they are a lighter green, yellowy green color. And as they go up, they get darker and darker. So this is where the new growth is. And here, this is where the new growth is. Reeds are interesting in that they're kind of flat on one side and rounded on the other. So I want to think about, when I'm painting them, how I'm creating that look of form, creating that roundness. So one area will be lighter, and the light was a cloudy day, which is the best light for taking pictures of birds. Is the very best light is on cloudy days. So let's, because the light is more uniform, it's less harsh, and it's more subtle. So the light is actually coming from this direction. So all of my shapes will be on the right side versus on the left side. I'm going to start, as I always do, back to front. So let's get going here. And you can see I just sort of created a space of where they're at. There's a lot of information in here that's not in this first pass. Okay, so I'm still having problems on Facebook. Okay, not as many, hopefully. Let me know if you're here. Say hello. So if you're here, say hello, and if it's still a problem, I'm actually going to be contacting Northwest Tel and we'll upgrade to a better program. I wanted to try this before I did this. Okay, so I want to draw this shape in, and I'm just going to use a lighter paint so I can see what that shape is. I can soften that paint by just bringing that around. I'm not worried if I go over the bird because honestly I'm going to be painting and it's easier if you go over. So right now I'm just going to get my shapes in by just using a little bit of light. Okay, and we have this shape here. It's about, no, it's a little lower than that. Yes, remember, don't touch your shirt. This shape here. And then there's a big shape there. Shape that goes in behind. And we're going to come down here. So I'm just creating, getting my little shapes into my bigger shape while I'm working on this. Oh, this one has a really high. Okay. And then, take that off with my finger, and then this comes here. So we're going to decide which one's in front, because what's happened is I actually have some old reeds still in here, and they're not, that's not what my focus is the reeds from last summer or from the summer before. So these pictures, let me tell you the backstory of this. I was too tired to write it in my newsletter last night, so sorry about that, guys. 2020, you know, we're basically left in Yellowknife and not going anywhere, and I spent a lot of time out at Niven, and what I was doing is, I need a little darker yet, I was taking pictures of birds, spending time there, and there was a nest of grebes. There were a couple of nests. One, the water climbed, and for one of them, it drowned them out, and they abandoned the eggs, which was kind of sad. For the other one, they had built their nest high enough to accommodate water climbing, which I found really interesting. And they, let's bring a little bit of this in here. Yeah, thinking about putting a lighter value in front, but not too light. So this nest had 4 eggs and 4 young that came of it. I do know I saw 2 young later that I was able to photograph, but that doesn't mean that there weren't, the other ones weren't just older and weren't there anymore, because there was certainly enough young ones. So I'm just softening it with that Princeton flat Dakota brush that I really like. It's a harder brush, and if I touch it really gently, I can flatten and get that shape. So I'm starting to see that I'm getting that rounded shape. I'm just going to go another value lighter just to go on the edge. And this one I've got my very abused, because that's how I want it, Robert Simmons, oops, wrong one. Robert Simmons, Sapphire. So I'm just going to come and I'm going to push that paint across. Now I'm not worried if I'm going over the edge, because I'm going to bring that Dakota hard brush and clean up that edge so that everything is matching and looks good, and you're not getting too much in the background. Okay. When I come back, I will come back and do the third pass, and the third pass is really to get things finalized. But right now I'm just getting them as close as I can. Interesting. So I have I'm going to take a little bit more gray into that. So on my palette, I have 7 different greens and a range of different values of my Munsell gray that I can mix in with the green to bring the chroma down when I need to have it look like what I'm seeing. Okay, so I'm coming in with a very edge of my brush, because I can see that there is a little bit of so I'm going to come in and just touch the edges there with my Dakota, and then I'm going to thanks to the person on YouTube that I can see is commented. I'm happy you're here. I think it tells me I'm going to have to really move up to that new level, the next level up, because I need my live stream to be not as jumpy. Okay, I'm going to let that dry, because if I touch it, I'm pulling it back, and I don't want that. So I can let that dry, and then let's move into the next one. So I have a bigger one in front here that I'm going to focus in on and then work on the background ones. Okay, so it's darker on the top. Oops, let's start with the dark. Darker at the top and lighter at the bottom. Okay, so let's just get that shape in. Let's get that darker at the top. And as we move down, I want to change that value just a little bit. I just grab paint that's a little lighter and sort of blend it in and bring it down right to the bird. And then I'm going to come in with a little bit more light. I haven't really cleaned my brush. I'm just going to use what's on my brush and put it next to each other. And I think that let's just blend it out. So this brush has been quite abused on purpose. Like, I smashed it onto the table to get it to be where I wanted it to be. So it's a little darker as we come down. So we'll add a little more darkness. So it's not the same value of, And then I'm going to smush them together and soften that edge. Pull it down. So Timlin 5111, thank you for coming and thank you for commenting. Okay, let's, we have that edge again where we have that lighter edge. So I just want to bring in that, ooh, it's a little loose, that paint, a little wet, so it's probably not going to work as well. I'm not drying off my brush enough. I'm getting too much paint in there, water in there. So I'm just, I don't even clean this brush a whole lot while I'm painting. I just sort of touch the edges to create that form. And because this is in front, I'm not seeing a divide between this reed and the other ones in behind. And there's no real cast shadows here. There's really no cast shadows because the light is very uniform, because it's a cloudy day. Okay. So bring it up here. And as I bring it down, make the value a little lighter. Just bring it down and then make the value a little lighter. So I have three what I call darks, and they are more chromatically towards the blue. And then my lights are towards the, just soften that edge, there. My lights are towards, more towards the yellow to give. So again, it's darker at the top. So I'm going to start with a darker of the ones that are more towards the yellow. And then it gets a little, wow, that's a little too light. Let's not go that light that fast. Let's soften that out and see what that does when we soften it out. Dry my brush off, come at it sort of the other side, just touching, touching, touching. Yes, it's a lovely splayed brush now. Gives you more. When I took that class with Robert Bateman, his brushes are just traumatized. They're real interesting. And he just paints like you wouldn't believe with these really ratty old brushes. And you're just like, oh, okay. Okay. So ratty old brushes are the thing to have in your arsenal. Okay, and I want to grab a little bit of the lightest value just to put along the edge. I'm going to pull a little bit off my brush so that I don't have too much, and I'm going to come in here and create that rounded light shape by just touching it in, touching it in, touching it in. So it's a subtle roundness. And then what I see is a more grayed out version. Let's take that. I'm just going to take a little bit of the Munsell gray and bring the second lightest one to more of a grayed out look, so that it's not quite so green, because that's what I'm seeing here, is that it's and I can take that paint with my Princeton flat, the Dakota one, and just pull it out from and build that up nice and carefully. So to lower a chroma of a color, after my show, I will be uploading my acrylic one. And I will be having, we'll be talking about chroma and stuff, not in the acrylic one as an answer to the acrylic one, because I did that recording quite a while ago and I've learned new things since. So I'm just going to do a two-part series on that particular thing. Or update it, I guess. Except it won't look like it belongs. Okay. Now, I have too much of that light in there, so I'm going to bring the paint over and I'm going to grab some of the darker, lighter color at the bottom, gray it out just a little bit, lower that chroma, and bring that right here. Now the reeds are pretty, I mean, they're green. They're lovely and luscious green. But you'd be surprised at how far down the chroma, like how much neutralized gray I added to these greens to make them more realistic. I had tubes of paint that I've made before that I just use those, and what I found really interesting with them is that, I'm going to bring that around a little bit more, is that, soften it out, is that I'm trying to use up old paint mixtures that I've done, just because there's a lot of paint in that. And I needed to add just some cerulean blue to make them a little bit bluer, and that was it. And the Munsell grays to bring the chroma down, because though I thought I understood chroma in the old days, I had no clue what I was talking about. Now I understand chroma. And I'm going to be happy to share it with you guys once I get through this show and I can think straight again. Okay, so, okay, I need to bring that down a little bit further. I need to bring that gray down, gray that green down. I'm always surprised when I do the chroma how much really looks. You think, oh, that's going to be. It's surprising how it works. Okay, just blend that together. Stand back. I mean, I'll come back and correct anything that needs correcting. Right now, I'm just trying to get the second pass in, see what I think about it, and then I can come back and tweak those on the third pass. Now I don't want them to look like I have that I'm doing exactly the same color value on each one so that they look robotic. I'm trying to be interested in changing things up, and I'm doing that by intermixing paints, different paints together to get to where I want it to go, because I'm not a robot. I'm not making this doesn't all look exactly the same as everything else. I'll put that beside, put enough paint on, dry my brush, and touch the edge, soften that edge. And that really does create that rounder look when that edge is softer. And you have to do that fairly quickly with acrylic. You can't leave it and wait like you can with oil, and you can come back with a fan brush and touch it and make it soften the edges. With acrylic, you have to do it right away so that that is done before the paint has a chance to dry, or it'll just dry and that'll be it. Okay. Standing back, where's the next one I'm going to? The next one I'm going to has that grayed out base. So let's start with that. Let's get that shape in there. This time it is facing a different direction. So this one's facing this direction. This one over here is up higher and facing this direction. So I'm just gonna, I've got it a little bit too grayed out. And then I'm coming down and building this drawing. And I can see that it could be lighter too. So I'll just make that a little lighter. You can hear that I'm opening and closing that my, oh yeah, it goes right down to the head. Just pay attention. Where I have my paint in the Rubbermaid container. I always put my paint into a Rubbermaid container because it keeps everything fresher, and then it keeps the moisture in. So this is the color series that I'm working with, that I've created. And they are, for Munsell people, 5GY, 8-2, value 8, chroma 2, value 7, chroma 4 and 6. Bring that down. And it needs to be a little darker. But still needs to be grayed out a little bit more. Bringing the chroma down, because this one seems to be pushing back away from in behind the other ones, which I find really interesting. And because of that, there is a little bit of, just a touch of cast shadow on this side. Now it can't be as dark as what's on the reed next to it, but it can be close to it. Using my brush, touching the edges to soften the edges. So I am T-minus 15 days from my opening. I have been working from the moment I wake up until I crash into bed. I finished the pintails yesterday, and I'm really pleased with them. They're hanging upstairs. This morning I made, just soften that edge because I don't want it that hard. This morning I made my isolation coat because I have to first photograph the paintings and then put an isolation coat before I varnish them. So I'm busy doing that kind of stuff. I got my invitations out, so if you are a local person or a family member, yeah, you will have gotten your invitations. On the front of the invitations this year, oh, I'm working down at the bottom here, on one of these, this area. It's probably too gray, but that's all right. Come back and figure that out. Anyway, on the front of the invitations, it says if if the person doesn't live there, or if you no longer wish to receive this invite, you can let me know. And I've had a couple of people let me know that people that used to live there no longer live there, and I could then make the changes I needed to make on my list. So they're out, they're being received. So strangely, the ones from away were received faster than the ones from in town. Okay, so right up there, and take that brush and soften that edge. Push it out, push it out. If the brush is too wet, it's going to grab the paint and hold on to it, which I don't want. So I can get another version of the same brush because I've been abusing them all. It's the only way I use them. Oh, drop the paintbrush. Okay, put some more paint on there. and then come and just softly touch, softly touch. Oops, the paint must be too wet because it's just pulling it off. Okay, that's fine. It's got what I wanted, which was subtle. So this spring I went out and I went to, okay, that's good. Okay. I went to different places, and this summer I did it too. And I took my Munsell book, which has those pages on it. On other videos you've seen, but I don't have the Munsell book here. It's upstairs doing its thing, you know, helping me get. Okay, so let's shape that. Oh, no, it goes right to the edge here. There's a lot of information on these reeds. You just think that they're reeds, but yet they seem to pack a lot of information, a lot of variations in them. Whew. Now that's exciting because the bottom is, that's the thing you have to remember, the bottom is lighter because it's growing from the bottom and pushing up. So just touching the edge all the way along and pulling it out. So yeah, pushing that up into it and pulling the dark back into it. If you get too much paint, then you have to clean off that brush. So I'm standing back, I'm looking at it, I'm seeing where I need to lighten up here. With sort of that lovely greeny yellow. Don't get into the one next to it. I want that gray to stay there. Drying off my brush, softening the edge, pulling it, pushing it out. Trying to work that three-dimensional look into what I'm working with. Ooh. Except I seem to be jelly fingers today. Okay. So as we go down, we're going to go a little lighter, trying to think of the variations. And okay, bring that brush in and touch the edges. And then bring this down here. I'm going to just put it over the gray a little bit. Just bring that gray back into a sort of a glazing is what I'm doing here. I'm not covering it completely with the paint. I'm just moving the paint around on that gray. So it is still gray, but it's not quite light enough. In fact, interesting, I might have to actually mix some more paints because it turns out that it's got some browns in it too. So I'll just work on that. It's only when you get into the little final detail, like start looking really closely. When I do the first pass and the color study, what I'm looking for is the main colors. And then when you get into the detail, I'm starting to see that there's a little bit of, this must be stuff that's the sheath that's starting to fade away, and so it's starting to die, and it's not, I've not got the colors quite right on it. But I will fix that up and I will make it be the right colors when I come back. And I hadn't seen that because that's not what I was looking for. Okay, so let's move over to this one here. So I'm going to start with this. I want that to be highlighted. It should be brighter than the background. It's not quite because I didn't make the background dark yet. And when you see the painting finished, there will be all this interesting pattern on here that will be darker to lighter as it moves away. I have to draw that all out, but it will be there. Okay, just taking a little bit of that darker green and graying it out a bit, because of course the reed is falling over. And then a lighter green and graying it out a bit as I move up. Ooh, that's probably too light, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. I'm just going to pounce it and lighten it, spread that paint around. Okay. It starts to give me the information I'm looking for. And the more you have to compare against, the easier it is to make decisions about where you want to go. I need that to be darker. Okay, so what I'm seeing is it's darker right underneath here, right underneath there. It's nice, straight, and then it comes darker where the two reeds are touching. Let's get a little bit more green. Where the two reeds are touching, it's and I'm just going to soften that a little bit all the way along here. And I see that I spread a little bit of that paint into the lighter area. I'm just going to touch that back with the other brush. Now this one is showing that it's darker near the bottom, but I know that it shouldn't, well, it's actually a dead gray one and I'm making it green. So I'm going to make it a little bit lighter there, and I'm going to pounce that and spread it out, because I don't want to lose the darkness that's already there. I just want to capture some of the light that's happening. Whoops, too light. Clean my brush off, dry it off so I don't get too much water on and make it too soupy. Take some of the darkest one that I have, that value 4 chroma 4, and a little bit of the value 4 chroma 4 value 5 one, and blend them together to sort of create that in-between color that I'm looking for. Okay. Touching the edges and building, pushing it out. And I see that I've got a little bit going into the water, so I want to get that under control if I can. And I see that I haven't totally got it under control from before, so okay. Let's keep these brushes. These Dakota ones are just lovely. They've got some real gumption to them, so you can keep kind of scrubbing in an area and it will pull out the paint enough. Okay, so I'm standing back and I'm looking. So this reed I'm making look green. It wasn't green yet at that point, and it may not have gotten green all summer. I don't know. I didn't pay attention. But I really wanted this to be, I mean, part of the changing season theme seemed that I should be working on different seasons. So I've done the winter, I've done the spring, and now I'm doing the summer. I'm not going to get a fall one done. It just isn't possible. I don't have enough time, which, you know, is what it is. Okay. Lighter near the bottom. and we're seeing this shape here. So I just want to draw this in, and it comes down and it wraps right around, yeah, right around there. Interesting. Huh. Funny, you don't notice when you're not paying close attention. So this is one big one here, all the way to this edge, and there's an answering one that's going to come down here and come in behind. So it's like, what am I thinking it's looking like? Celery might grow like this. Maybe it grows kind of like celery. Is it celery or is it... I'm going to have to go and look at the vegetables and see what grows like this. Okay. So there's a little bit of more shadow over here because of being behind the other piece. And remember, the light is coming from this direction. Even though it's really soft, it is coming from this direction. So this one is blocking the light a little bit on the other. So I'm just pulling it down, pulling it down, pulling it down. And remember, it gets lighter as you go down, so I'm just going to bring in a little bit of lightness and move it in. And blend it. Again, this is just getting as much information in as I can. Okay, now I'm going to come in and just soften everything. You move fast enough, you can do this. If you don't move fast enough, it just dries, and then you're just like, oh, gotta put more paint on. And see, I didn't do it quite fast enough up here. I'm going to bring in my Princeton one because it has a little bit more gumption to it. I can soften that edge by just touching it and pulling it. I just wanted to get that whole shape in there so that I know what I'm dealing with. And when I stand back, I can see what's been successful and what's not. Ah, interesting. So, let's get some light in here. So there's a band here on this that is capturing more light than the other side of the reed, because it's quite a significant size reed, this one. Just gently touch it. Okay. So is it still being glitchy? It looks like Facebook has kind of failed. Or is it working still? I can't tell. I'm concentrating on painting, not at what I'm seeing. So if after the video is done, if you could leave me a comment saying it was glitchy or not, or I'll come back and watch it and see how glitchy it was. Okay, so I want to bring in a little bit of that grayed out darker here to create that form that I'm seeing. Yeah, there we go. Stand back. Still needs tweaking, but that's all right. I can see that I have a lovely shape here that is quite linear, actually. It comes down to here, and it's thicker here and goes thinner to this, capturing the light. Darker at the top and coming down to lighter as for the plane that is not capturing the light here. Well, it needs to be a little bit darker yet. Yeah, there we go. And then we want it to come down here. I'm going to take that brush, soften the edge, and touch them together. Okay. Okay. And now I'm looking at the next one. There is a much lower chroma, darker line that's separating these two. So let's put that in place. So I've added a little bit more of that Munsell Gray, the same value, which is value 4, into the chroma 4 value 4. It comes nice and thin. And I'm just going to leave that there to dry. I don't want to get into it too fast and then have, okay, one more time to shut off my camera and turn it back on. There we go. Okay, so we're starting to see some interesting shapes starting to, and they're very subtle. They're not wildly standing out shapes of light, and because we're not, make that shape come up here, just drawing it in so that I can see where I want it to be. This is not when the sun is shining on it. This is a quieter day, an easier day to take pictures of birds, that's for sure, because when it's quieter and the light is, you don't get underexposed birds or overexposed. You're not fighting with your exposures quite so much when you're taking pictures. And a couple of newsletters ago, I actually had, I did a little bit of explaining about that and showed different pictures of birds that I had taken. Oops, that's too light. And how different kinds of lighting works, is more successful than, okay, let's bring that down here. It comes down here. And the most successful one for birding, for me, is the cloudy days. Don't always remember to get out on those cloudy days. Okay. Oh, I see. There's another one that goes that way. Okay. Okay, stepping back. We just have, 10 more minutes and our hour is done. And I've actually got a fairly good start on this. I think, the next thing I will do after this hour, it was easier to manage. Easier to manage reeds today than try and get the water organized and drawn out and onto here. So the next thing I will actually do after my hour here is I will do the water and get the background done, and then come back and complete the reeds and make them look what I'm trying to accomplish. Okay, and this comes here, and then it comes down. Sometimes the connections are so subtle that you can't actually, you have to really look to see, the difference where this reed ends and the next one starts. because they're right on top of each other and they're close in value, but you still need to find that information. And it is there. The subtlety, it's just very subtly there. Okay. I'm still trying to get this shape here correct from what I'm seeing over here. It could be that that's what I need, is that there. Backing up and looking at it. Okay, so this shape here is all one reed. Now let's get to it and see what we can pull out of there. So lighter at the bottom and darker as we go up. So let's get this a little lighter down here. Let's correct that. Just push the paint too far. So I can correct it by just bringing my Princeton and pulling the paint. Oh, okay. Timlin. I will, yep, I think that answers my question. My question needs to be that I need to upgrade at Northwest Tel to a higher level, faster and more live stream. I did find that they had one more level up from where we're at, and it is a live stream, and it does say that it's for live streams, so hopefully we'll see how that works, and we'll try that for 2 weeks from now on that Friday evening, and hopefully it will, work its way out and it will work. Because I really actually like doing these live streams. I find them quite interesting. I'm not sure if you guys find them interesting, but I find them interesting because I get to talk about my work. Normally I just paint, and there's no talking there's movies on behind me. That's the only talking happening. So, okay. So it helps me to sort of formulate and put into perspective why I'm doing what I'm doing when I'm talking to you guys. Okay. There we go. And we can see that light comes down a little bit more along this edge, but the center is darker. So I'm going to pull that paint away a little bit. But that's what that third round will be, is to really correct all of the values. Okay. We are at, just a few more minutes left here. Let's see if we can get that light. Let's add a little bit more. Lighten that a little bit more. I'm going to lighten this plane up even more. There's not a lot of really light planes on here, but there are a few. And here's a light plane. And so these planes that I'm lightening up are facing directly up to the sky. So they're getting all that light that the sun is putting out and is being diffused by the clouds. I'm just going to put this plane in place. Yeah, well, maybe I shouldn't touch the other one that I already did. Yeah. There you go. Put that plane in place and get my hands out of the way. It's a good thing I don't paint in oil. Well, if I painted in oil, I wouldn't be doing that. So most of the reeds are facing away from the sun. They're perpendicular to the light, and so that's why they're darker. But these few reeds are facing into the right up to the sky, and so they're capturing that light, and I'm not worried about that. Just want to make sure. Well, I think this is a good place to stop. I wanted to capture sort of those reads that are directly. So when we look at objects this way, unless the sun is coming at them directly, they're really, on a cloudy day, you're not going to notice. That's why they're so subtle. But turn the plane facing up to the sky, and you can see how much lighter it is. Well, thank you. This test told me now I need to move up to the next level at Northwest Hell, and hopefully in 15 days at my opening, that is October the 29th at 6 p.m. Mountain, I will be doing my show live from my living room and sharing with you the work, and you'll be able to see, I mean, you can see the size of this because we're working with it. And I'll talk more about my work, and I hope you'll make it. A week before, if you're sign up for the newsletter, a week before the show, I will have the price list out like I did last year, and so that you'll know what the prices are for the paintings if you're at all interested in purchasing them. And I will... it'll be all on my website, and all that information will be coming as the last 15 days go past here. Anyway, we will see you in a month after I recuperate from this marathon that I've been on these last few months for my show and kind of get my life back in order. And I will be back, and we will be doing small paintings again that are for auctioning. And I'm going to be asking those on my newsletter to do a little questionnaire as to which one they want me to start with. And watch for that for about a week before. About November 11th, I'll be sending that email out in that range, the 10th, 11th, 12th, someplace in there for the following Thursday. Okay, see you guys later. Have a great week, and see you in 15 days upstairs in my living room that turns into a gallery. Bye.